Ever get that like nagging feeling?
Yeah.
You know, that feeling that you're supposed to have your whole life like planned out and everything, but you just don't. It
Yeah.
can be, especially I think when you're younger too, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that's kind of what we're diving into today. This whole feeling of uncertainty about life goals.
Okay.
And we're using this episode of the Learn English podcast from YouTube as our source material.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of geared towards helping people navigate this, phase of life.
Yeah, it's a great resource for anyone, I think, who's feeling, a little lost.
Right.
What I think is really great about this specific source is that they really emphasize that this feeling of, uncertainty,
Yeah.
like not knowing what you want, it's really common.
Totally.
Like they're not shying away from that at all.
Yeah, it's almost like there's this pressure though, right? Like you're supposed to have it figured out,
Absolutely.
but then this podcast is like, no, that's totally normal. It's like a natural part of, growing up and everything.
It is. And I think it makes sense, right? Because we're always like changing and growing as people.
Right.
So like, obviously our desires are going to change too. It's not like, you have one interest and you're stuck with it.
Right, exactly. It's not like a contract you're signing.
Yeah. You're allowed to just kind of like explore things, see what you like, what you don't like,
Gabble. Yeah.
and then walk away if it's not doing anything for you.
Totally. And I think they also made a good point that, like, what we want today might not be what we want tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, life is just, it's constantly changing and throwing new things at us.
Mm.
That resonates with me so much. Like, I was convinced I was going to be a veterinarian.
Oh, wow.
I was like all in on biology, animal shelters, the whole thing.
Wow.
And then I took this random creative writing class,
Mm-hmm.
and it completely like changed my whole trajectory.
That's awesome.
So yeah. Okay, so we're kind of feeling this uncertainty. We're realizing it's normal, right? We're allowed to change and evolve. But then, like, how do we even go about exploring our options? You know what I mean? Like, without getting overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. The podcast actually has this like really cool analogy.
Okay.
They compare exploring all your different interests to going on like these little adventures.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So you could take a painting class or try a new recipe or join a sports team. It's all about just like being proactive and actually going out there and like seeking out these experiences that might kind of help you figure out what you like actually really enjoy doing.
I love that because it takes the pressure off of having to be like amazing at it, right?
Right.
It's like, it's not about winning, it's about gathering information.
Exactly. Like they really, really emphasize being open-minded and like trying new things and not like judging yourself for it.
Right. And I think it's easy to get stuck in this cycle, right, of setting these like huge goals
for sure.
that are super intimidating.
Yeah.
And then if you don't, achieve them, it's like, ugh, see, I can't do anything.
Right. And then that just makes you feel more uncertain.
Totally.
But they actually like really warn against that.
Right.
They recommend starting small,
Oh,
like focusing on achievable goals as like stepping stones.
Okay.
So, maybe if you're interested in writing, you could try writing a short story.
Yeah.
Or if cooking is more your thing, you could try cooking like a new dish every week.
Oh, it's good here.
Little things like that.
Right.
But they really help like build your confidence and, keep you motivated.
Okay, so we're trying things out. We're setting like these manageable goals.
Mm-hmm.
What's like, where do we go from there?
Well, they talk about, like thinking back on things that you've done in the past
Okay.
and seeing, what you liked and what you didn't like.
Okay, yeah.
So like, if you think back to like when you were in school. Right.
What classes did you enjoy? What did you not enjoy?
I see, yeah.
Hobbies, things like that. Anything that kind of, genuinely made you happy.
Yeah.
Or conversely, like really made you unhappy.
Right.
It's like, it's all valuable data.
No, totally. Yeah, it's so easy to like get caught up looking forward that you forget to like mine all that information from your past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like they frame it as like looking back to move forward.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So like, if you really loved like art classes when you were a kid,
right.
Maybe there's something there. Like maybe you're a creative person. Yeah. Or if, you always hated group projects, maybe that means that you work better independently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like piecing together all these like clues almost
Yeah.
to figure out like what you actually like and don't like.
Exactly. And I think, sometimes the answers are right there in front of us.
We just kind of have to pay attention.
Totally. Now, what about when you feel like you've tried things,
Hmm.
you've reflected on your past,
Hmm.
but you're still feeling uncertain,
Yeah.
you know? Like, what do they have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's when, like, having that support system really comes in handy,
Oh,
you know? Like, they talk a lot about the importance of reaching out to people
okay.
and getting advice and guidance. So that could be, friends, family,
Right.
mentors, whoever you trust.
Yeah.
But it's like having that sounding board to bounce ideas off of
Right.
and get different perspectives.
Yeah, sometimes I think just like voicing it
Yeah,
can help so much,
absolutely.
just to get it out there.
Yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
one thing that they highlight too is that, like, different people can offer different types of support.
Okay.
So like a friend might be really great at brainstorming with you, but a mentor might be able to kind of give you more structured advice
Right, right.
based on their experience.
Yeah, that's a good point
Yeah,
because like not everybody's the same. So,
totally.
yeah, and I thought it was interesting how they were like you don't have to follow every piece of advice
Oh,
you
yeah,
get,
absolutely.
So, like take what resonates and leave what doesn't.
Totally. Like you have to trust your gut at the end of the day.
Right. Right.
Because sometimes we can get so caught up in like trying to please other people or
Mhm.
like do what we think we're supposed to do
Right.
that we actually lose sight of like what we really want.
Yeah, so it's all about that balance, right? Of getting
Yeah,
that input, but also trusting like your intuition.
absolutely. And actually speaking of like trusting your intuition and all of that,
Yeah.
they also talk about the importance of taking breaks, which I
Okay.
think is really interesting. And they connect that to like self-care and stress management.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever noticed that if you're like trying to force a decision,
Yes,
it's like trying to squeeze water from a stone,
totally.
you know?
Not gonna happen.
Nothing's coming out and you're just getting like more and more frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like stowing away and just like letting things process can
Mm,
actually be the best way forward.
absolutely. And they suggest like going for walks, meditating,
Yeah. Yeah.
just, spending time in nature,
Right.
just anything that helps you kind of like de-stress and clear your head.
Yeah, it's like hitting that reset button,
Totally. Yeah.
so you can like come back to it with fresh eyes.
And I think it's so easy to get like, laser focused on finding the answer
Right.
that we forget to like actually take care of ourselves in the process.
Yes, 100%.
Like it's like trying to run a marathon without like stopping to eat or drink.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just going to burn out.
You're going to crash, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Okay, so we've got taking breaks. We've
Mhm.
got seeking out like support
Yep.
and trusting our intuition.
Yeah.
So how does all of this like tie back into the bigger picture of like navigating this uncertainty?
Well, one thing that they emphasize is that it's not just about like getting advice from other people.
Okay.
It's also about like having that time for yourself
Okay.
to kind of like really explore things on your own.
So it's about balancing the two.
Exactly. Yeah, it's finding that balance between like external input
Right.
and your own introspection and discovery.
I would say.
And they actually like they use this term working independently
Okay.
to kind of describe this. Like it's about taking all of that advice,
Right.
all of those experiences you've gathered, and
Yeah.
then like filtering them through your own lens,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
figure out what actually feels right to you.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like you're gathering all these ingredients from different sources
Yeah,
and then you're going in the kitchen and you're like, "Okay, how do I want to use these?"
exactly. It's like it's not about following some predetermined recipe for
Yeah.
success.
Right.
It's about like taking inspiration from all these different places
Mhm.
and creating something that's uniquely you.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that feeds into the taking breaks too then, right?
absolutely.
Because that's when you can kind of like process everything and make
Breaks.
sense of it all.
Mm-hmm. And, it all kind of ties back to this idea of embracing the journey,
Okay.
which we'll talk about more in the next part.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I think that's a really key part of it.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned because we're going to be diving even deeper into that
Yes.
and unpacking all the juicy insights about embracing the journey. Okay, so welcome back for the final part of this deep dive.
Hmm.
We've been talking about all these really practical tips, for dealing with that uncertainty when it comes to life goals, trying new things, talking to other people. But there's this one, I don't know, big takeaway from the podcast, and I think it really ties everything together.
Okay.
And that's this idea of like embracing the journey.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Totally, yeah. I think it's so powerful, especially like, these days where it feels like everyone's telling you you have to have it all figured out
Right.
right now.
Like yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. And this podcast really does a good job of like reminding you, it's okay if you don't have this perfect plan.
Yeah, it's like, where's your 5-year plan? And
Exactly.
if you don't have it, you're like failing.
Right. But like, the truth is figuring out what you want, it's a process.
Yeah.
It's not like you just wake up one day and you have all the answers.
Yeah.
It can be messy, it can be like unpredictable. There are going to be like twists and turns along the way, and that's okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what if instead of like stressing about having the answers right now, we kind of shifted our focus to like enjoying the process? You know what I mean?
Yes. And that's actually like exactly what they encourage you to do in this podcast.
Okay.
And they use this phrase, it's a journey, not a destination.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that just perfectly sums it up,
It really does.
Like it takes the pressure off of having to have it all figured out right away.
Right.
You can just like relax into the experience
Yeah.
and just be open to like where it takes you.
Yeah. And I think that makes it more fulfilling too, right?
Absolutely. Like imagine if instead of focusing on the finish line,
Right.
you're more focused on like collecting experiences along the way.
Right.
Like your life isn't, this straight line. It's like it's more like a tapestry
Go, I like that.
of all the things you've tried and learned and even failed at.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes those moments of like uncertainty, almost like opportunities,
Yeah.
for growth and learning about yourself.
Absolutely. Like it lets you appreciate your own like unique path,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't look like anyone else's.
Totally. Totally. And they also talk about trust, right?
Yes.
Like trusting yourself, trusting the process,
hmm
trusting that you're going to, figure things out along the way.
Yeah. I think it's easy to get caught up in the fear of like making the wrong decision.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But like, what if there are no wrong decisions?
Right.
What if every experience, even the ones that don't go as planned, ultimately leads you to where you're supposed to be?
That's so true. It's like, it's all part of it,
It is.
Okay, so I'm feeling a lot less pressure
Good.
already just from this conversation, but I think it's important to like remind ourselves, right, that it's okay to not know.
Yes, 100%.
And it's totally normal to feel uncertain,
Mm.
especially I think when you're younger, but really at any age.
Oh,
That, like it's not a sign that you're doing something wrong.
Anyway.
It's part of being human.
Mm-hmm. It's like, it's an invitation to like go on this journey of self-discovery.
So I guess the big takeaway here is embrace the exploration. Find some people who can support you.
Yes.
And trust the process.
Yeah. You might be surprised where it takes you.
I love that. And don't forget, you're not alone on this journey, right? Like everybody's figuring it out as they go,
Totally.
which is kind of nice.
It is nice. You have, people who care about you, resources to help you,
Mm.
a whole world of possibilities out there.
And on that note, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. I hope you found it helpful. I hope you feel a little bit more encouraged,
Yeah.
maybe even inspired
Mhm.
to embrace that uncertainty and see where it takes you. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll see you back here for another deep dive.
Sounds good.